Can you address the Facebook issue?
It says it's now streaming on Facebook. It just popped up on my thing here.
Yeah, mine too.
Yes, it's there now.
It's there now.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't respond when you were sharing a screen. I started the stream on Facebook, but
Okay.
that does not count legally as it was never posted that way. The official link is still the Zoom link.
And the Zoom link is working, correct?
The Zoom link is working because we have 36 people attending right now. And the only way they can attend is by using that Zoom link that was posted legally. Link is working
Gotcha.
because we have 36 people.
Yeah, I don't disagree that the Zoom link is working. Just a whole lot of people are wanting to watch this meeting and thought they could view it on Facebook and weren't able to.
Well, apparently that's been remedied, Magistrate Elkins.
I'm texting people now.
There we go. It's working.
Okay. Okay. So I believe we were looking at a third transfer. Is that correct? Am I in the right spot?
Yes.
That being transfer 3C, beginning in an amount or beginning with number 01-5044-4450, office supplies in the amount of $1,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Transfers. Okay, item number 4, consider approval of the bills list. Do I have a motion?
Judge, are we gonna do approve this in two separate bills lists, A and B?
Yes. Hold on, let me get that. I don't know how to, let me think about the right way to, I suppose this will be item number 4A. This will be starting with animal shelter bill for supplies to repair the mower and trimmer in an amount of $80.44.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Now we have additional bills to be approved. We'll mark that as item number 4B, but the easiest way to recognize the difference is it says additional bills. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 5 on the agenda, consider approval of an order to upgrade the FCAS 6.0 accounting software. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Judge, I didn't see a cost.
This is
None.
included in the fee that we already pay, Robert, so no additional cost.
Already, no additional fee. Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 6, consider approval of the first reading of the Clark County fiscal year 2021 budget ordinance. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we're now open for discussion.
Judge,
Yep.
point of clarification. I had picked up 2 copies from the judge's office this week, and I think this is the most recent one, but I have 2 different copies. So on first page under jail, total budgeted amount of what I'm looking at is $2,971,772 and no cents. Is that the correct version? I have another version that on that line says $2,907,824.
That's the 2,907,824, I believe, Magistrate Davis.
That's what I've got.
2,907,824 is what we should be looking at.
That's correct. Mhm.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Judge, I've got just one thing is if you'll accept it as a friendly amendment, one thing I noticed here under coroner expenses, the amount, it was account number 0150202100. It was listed as $2,500, but that's part of his expense salary, which gets paid out on a monthly basis. And the amount that's been for the past several years has been $3,600. So I would like to propose a friendly amendment there to increase that to the $3,600 and then decrease the contingent appropriations, which is account 0192009990 by $1,100, which would make the new contingent appropriations $126,240, if that would be agreeable.
I will accept that as a friendly amendment. I would note, just for future reference, maybe we'll consider this next year, that if it's legal, I would not mind combining that line item with the salary line item. If it has to be separate, it has to be separate, but just for the purposes of the public knows that it's not actually, it's included in salary. Further discussion?
Judge, I've got a couple things.
Sure.
On page 3 of the appropriations, account number 150703990, planning and zoning. For the last eons, they've received $7,000. And for the last, this makes the 3rd year that appropriation has been 28. Talking with Robert Jeffries, he only requested $9,500. So what I would like to do, as Magistrate Constantopoulos did, I would like to propose a friendly amendment to adjust that $28,000 to $9,500. Then on the line underneath that, economic development, I would like to increase that to $75,000, taking away from that $28,000. And then under Parks and Recreation, 50154015070, increase that to $213,500. Then you still have the same balance, but more appropriately to the accounts that I feel it should be going to.
Okay. What's the line item you're talking about with Parks and Recreation, or what page?
It's the page, just a second. Page 5, the very last one, 0154015070. Currently at 200,000. Move 13,500 from that planning and zoning, and then 5,000 to the economic development. And it's in the book, it's still balanced.
Okay. Planning and zoning, 28,000. Let me check my appropriation spent so far this year first, Robert. I want to make sure I got all the numbers here. $703,990. I don't have a problem with that. I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
I need to make that as a motion.
No, I'll accept it. That's fine.
Then I had one other question, or actually I got two more, I think. I was just curious as to why we did, let me find the right page. Pardon me just a second. Back on page 8, second, third line down, was there some particular reason that we combined the road engineer's salary with the road department labor? I always thought that had to be a separate line item. Or it's historically been a separate line item, I guess I should say.
To be honest with you, that's just the way the budget was submitted to me by the road foreman, and so that's what I went with. I will say that according to the way that the budget works out, and I'm not going to make a promise on this at the moment, but I would like to take a look at specifically those department heads who used to receive comp time. That would be your road foreman. That would be your dog warden, I guess, Addie, and also the deputy judge. And to see if we can't make some sort of allocation to them on a cash basis that would account for the loss in comp time. So maybe that would allow some wiggle room in that regard. But aside from that, really no specific reason.
And I've got one final question that kind of relates to that.
Hey, Robert,
Pardon me.
can I ask a question on that same thing? It was one of my notes.
Okay, sure.
Then I'll move back to you. Judge, in the budget prep and state local finance officer policy manual, it actually requires that be separated.
Okay.
And it must be coded a 102 account, not a 185.
Pardon, let me get that again. You said it is required?
Yeah, it's required by the budget policy manual. The statutory appointments of the county treasurer, road supervisor, and dog warden must be separated into a 102 account.
Having said that, do we know what that amount will be? Judge?
That amount currently is, I don't know off the top of my head. Do you know that, Cheryl?
I thought it was.
I'm gonna send Cheryl, that's gonna adjust according to, and actually something I was gonna ask that we consider is whether or not we want to continue to give the raises as recommended in the administrative code or not, considering the budgetary issue.
That's my next question. So let's try to deal with this one first if we could.
Okay.
I think it was 55 maybe. Does that sound right?
Well,
That's
it
what
is.
it was.
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's mid 50s, I think.
Yeah, it's roughly 55 something.
Okay, that was close. Okay.
It's really good.
Judge,
Manager Davis?
thank you. I would recommend, and not just for that, but also I think there were a couple other department heads that might have been lumped in and not broken out, but we go ahead and budget for a higher salary. Obviously,
Yeah, it was
that
55.
that raise has not and will not be approved just with passage of the budget. I mean, the courts faced that issue before a few years ago, and it was even, I think, litigated without a decisive conclusion. But I mean, I would take the position that any raise would have to be approved by separate order. But I think there's nothing wrong with going ahead and budgeting for the raise now. Obviously, it may not happen, and the department head, of course, needs to understand that. But I would think if you're contemplating such a raise, we go ahead and account for it now in the line item, and then we address it later on as to whether or not it's appropriate.
Okay. I don't have a problem with doing that. We're gonna have to do some math on the fly, though. I would say,
Judge, I have
so
a
far,
comment on that when you're ready.
I would say separating out from road department labor approximately to be safe, I would say, and I think it's actually going to be a lower number than this that I would recommend, but I would say 65,000 would certainly cover, and then 435 for the road department labor. And you could make a similar change in the line item to the animal shelter.
Judge,
Yes.
speaking of the animal shelter there and brought up, now that is labeled as animal control officer, and that's the way that it's been, but Magistrate Thompson, it is the 1020. But I think there's multiple people being taken from that. Does that need to be separated out just for?
We certainly can do that. So animal control officer, yeah, that current salary represents Addie and at least one other of her workers. So that's probably that's something that, assuming that Magistrate Thompson is correct, that's probably something that's been budgeted wrong for a number of years, but let's go ahead and fix it.
It says dog warden. I assume that's the same thing.
Well, do you want to make that, do you just want to change that line item to dog warden and make that 50,000, and then under animal shelter salaries, increase that the additional
To 100,000?
20,000 to 100,000?
Are we sure that her salary's in that line item? I think it's in.
I can have Cheryl check.
I think it's in
Cheryl.
the salaries.
Cheryl, which line item is Addie's salary included within? Okay.
It would still need to be pulled out, Daniel, but I think it's in animal shelter salaries.
I think Magistrate Thompson, you're right on that. We'll just label that one as the animal shelter dog warden director, I guess. Fine with me, it don't matter.
Yeah, it'll work the same way either way, right? If the total of those two line items is $150,000, let's say hypothetically you take 50 out of one, that's still going to be 100 left any way you do it.
That's what I would think, Judge, as long as when you're populating those items, as long as it totals 150, I think it's fine.
So let's rename 015-205-1020 dog warden. And then let's make the allocation 50,000. And then let's take 015-205-1720, and we will continue to name it animal shelter salaries. I think that covers the issue. And make it 100,000.
And eliminate the 70,000 altogether.
Correct. Yeah, replace the 70 with a 50, replace the
Understand.
80 with 100, and that will balance.
Comes out to be 150,000 both ways.
Okay.
Judge, are there in this budget, do you anticipate pay increases for the county employees in this budget?
I currently had the floor. That was my next comment. If I can,
Sorry,
if I
Magistrate
can
Lane,
finish
go
up,
ahead.
since there's a lot of moving parts in this, and there's a lot of numbers, and as Magistrate Davis said, there's no salary increase unless we approve it. I would propose that we put a freeze on our salary raises, a freeze on our hiring, and a freeze on new equipments through December the 31st. We can review it in December. And if we want to go back and in January change those opinions, then we could do that if the economy is not as bad as we think. But I think at this point, given the numbers that I've heard from different people across the state, I think the prudent thing would be to freeze salary increases, freeze hiring, and freeze any new equipment buys, at least through the 1st of January.
Okay. Well, regarding the budget and new equipment, if you made that a broad statement, how would you suggest we address the fire tanker and engine?
But that's already been approved.
but it's in this,
Well,
this budget, if you get what I'm saying.
But we've
So
already,
basically,
I'm talking approving any new, but that's already been approved. I
Okay.
would assume that's the case, but it's already been approved. Because the court has approved that.
okay, Robert has made a motion. Is there a second to amend?
I would second that.
Travis has seconded. I will say that in regards to salaries, I feel that that's not a bad idea. I'm not sure necessarily how it would apply to equipment purchases, because some of the equipment allocations we've got could come in the second half of the fiscal year, which would be after we would do a review. I'm not sure if it doesn't make more sense to leave those in and then do.
After the first of the year anyway, to spend on any new equipment, so.
It just seems to me we could go ahead and budget for them and just not approve them.
Oh, I'm saying leave it in the budget, but
Okay,
be known by
All
all
right.
men at this point in time, salary freeze, hiring freeze, and no new equipment purchases, regardless of what's in the budget. At least through January the 1st. We'll look at it in December, and then we want to approve some changes in January, we can do that.
Hey, Judge,
Magistrate.
in regards to that is I don't think if we're going to leave the amount in the budget, I think that's what Robert had mentioned. I think that we would need to take this up in a different action due to it being in an ordinance. We can't order over an ordinance because the ordinance supersedes the order. So I think that we would have to repeal that in some form, but it's tied to our policy. and
Administrative
procedure.
code.
Our administrative code, yeah, sorry.
I think we can suspend that portion of it.
But, well, I mean, I'm gonna leave that to the legal guru, county attorney on how to address that. And I don't think it has to be addressed this meeting. I think we can address it later when he has time to research it.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the suggestion, that's for sure. I'm not sure unless you're making a motion to actually amend the budget, however, I don't
Well,
know
I
if
think
it's
it's the
appropriate. to
right time to
consider.
discuss it. If we need to take another action at the next meeting, so
Okay.
be it. But so that we're talking about the budget, everyone knows, regardless of what's in there, what our intent is to be.
Okay, yeah.
Whether we take this up now or not, I'd like to say this, I'm absolutely opposed to freezing pay increases on employees. I think there's other places to find that money and continue giving their employees pay increases. Now they need it now worse than ever.
Okay, Robert, I'm gonna ask that you withdraw that motion since it wasn't a motion to actually amend the budget. Are
That's
you
true.
okay with that?
I'll withdraw it.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion?
Judge, I got a couple things. When I was going through and looking at the budget, one thing that I noticed in the jail fund, the revenue for looks to be the revenue that the jail can generate this fiscal year due to everything that's going on and the limited number of state inmates and so forth. Looks like it's overestimated roughly $300,000 to $400,000. Have you heard anything in regards to that from the jail or?
Well, I mean, in general, I did speak with Chief Deputy Crockett, and I suppose you could say that some of the numbers he said did roughly equate to that. Let me take a look at my paperwork here, and I'll try to give you something more exact.
I got some comments on that when you're ready, Judge.
Go ahead. I'm looking through papers, so go ahead and talk.
The jail laid off 14 yesterday. I don't know how many people are aware of that. Chief Crockett is one of them. They're down to 24 full-time deputies. Bath County is coming to get their inmates next week. So you have another portion of the revenue there for $260,000, I believe it is. That's not going to work out either because we're not going to have any other county inmates after next week. The $1.4 million on state inmates, I think is what you took it down from $1.450. It's $31.34 a day. So if you do that math, I'd have to do it for a minute, but I know at $1.450 it was, you'd have to maintain 135 state inmates, and that's not going to happen. I'm not sure what number is at 1,400,000, but we can figure it if we need to. But I would say it's overestimated even more than Daniel suggested.
I would say if you go on today's number, it's probably overestimated to the tune of $500,000-600,000. The question is, how soon will we recover, and will we recover? That's really what you're looking at.
Well, I mean, with that, that's kind of what I did, but I think if we're gonna be, I think we definitely need to decrease the revenue on that and decrease the expenses to coincide with it, especially since they've laid off people. We could cut those down, and then what we could do is each quarter, review the budget, review where the revenue is, and then, if revenue is exceeding what the expectations are, then we could always look at doing a budget amendment. But I think that may be the best approach. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Okay, so the jail fund currently has in it, revenue-wise, are you making a motion, Daniel, or do you have a number you're suggesting?
Well, I do. I just wanted to see what everybody else's, if anybody else had
Okay.
any suggestions. I just kind of crunched some numbers and put it into a spreadsheet.
Well, like I said, I'm pretty confident it's somewhere between $0 and $600,000, but so far as where it actually falls in between there, your guess is as good as mine. I think if anyone could guess the exact state of the economy between now and 6 months from now, they'd be better than Warren Buffett. I don't know what else to tell you. So we just kind of have to take a stab at it and do the best we can.
Well, I would offer this up if nobody else has got any ideas, and we can discuss it. But what we could do is decrease the state prisoner revenue to make that 1,100,847. And then on the telecom agreement, I know that I saw that there's 62.5 in that amount, and based on the contract I have from them, the maximum amount over a 4-year period was 60,000 for the 4-year life of the contract, and we've already used 20 something of it now, unless there's a new contract that I'm unaware of. We could decrease that to 30,000, and so that would give you a total decrease in your revenue by 331,653.
Can you give me the number on state prisoners again? I didn't get that.
1,100,847.
Hey, Daniel,
Sir.
the jailer said that he is getting 62.5 on that. I asked that same question.
Is there a new contract, or?
I've not seen it, but he said he is for sure getting 62.5.
I haven't seen the contract. I sent the jailer an email about that earlier this week too.
My notes are that it's a new contract they signed in September. Again, I haven't seen it, for 250,000 over 4 years at 62.5 a year.
That's pretty much the exact same thing. Yeah, Chief Deputy Crockett told Travis and I both that last week on Monday. I wrote it down too, Travis.
Let me, if you give me just a second here, let me rerun my numbers here.
Are we gonna leave state, county contracts with other counties? We're gonna leave that the same?
Can't.
That's what I was thinking too. We need to do something with that.
So is the jailer suggesting that we budget for $0 in county contracts next year?
When I talked with him today, he doesn't know, but he really doesn't expect any.
Well, yeah, okay, so he said that sounds like that he is suggesting we project $0.
He didn't give me a number, but it was a pessimistic outlook from other counties. That's when I talked with him today.
Sounds like to me it needs to go to 0 then.
I don't know.
I
That would
mean,
be more
I'm
realistic.
just asking the question because I don't have.
more realistic than 260, right?
Yeah.
We can take it to 0.
Did anybody else talk with him and ask him what he thought? I mean, when I left today, we didn't really have come up with a number for either one of these.
No, Robert, I'd emailed and asked, this was a couple weeks ago. I know they've been busy and dealing with a lot there before last meeting, and I haven't received any response back, but I know they're busy and he may just not been able to try to have a contingency plan on it.
He was able to answer my other questions, but we just couldn't come up with a number for these two.
So if I'm following correctly, Daniel, you're suggesting on state prisoners an amendment to $1,100,847. Is that correct?
Well, that's what I originally was, but with all the numbers being whacked to zero, that throws everything out of balance.
Well, here's the thing. I think, and I hate to go into any budget or planning to amend, but I think we're going to have to evaluate at least this portion of the budget, maybe even on a quarterly basis, and plan to amend this budget at some point, because I mean, we're not getting good feedback on what the revenues will be. And I understand that to a certain extent, it's hard to project. And therefore we don't really know what the expenses are going to be. So I think we're going to have to at least consider budget amendments at some point throughout the year, at least on this particular portion. Make our best guess now and plan to guess again later.
Okay.
So,
Hold on
so
here.
right now we have 89 state inmates on the last condition report. I just looked it up. And at $1 million, that would be maintaining 87. So that's close to what we have now, but I don't know that we're gonna be able to keep them.
Hey, Judge, here's what
Yes.
I plugged in here. So to make this work with the telecom grant, and then we can just get a copy of the new contract before the second reading on it. But just take it from the state prisoners 034537000. Take that from 1.4 million down to $1,068,347. And so that would be an actual decrease of $331,653.
And what about the contract from other counties?
What's the pleasure of the court?
0.
Pardon me?
He said 0.
Seems to me like most people have said 0, unless somebody's got something different to say.
So what if all these grants and things, it seems like you have to budget in for like the pass-through money. So what if we did get a contract? Are we going to change the budget at that time, or do we allow for something?
I think as long as the line item exists, you can make a deposit into it. If you were to eliminate the line item altogether, you might have to create a line item, and that may require you to do an amendment.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Judge, let me see if I'm not 100% sure I understood the question. It broke up just a little bit for me. Doesn't mean it did for the viewer, but it did for me. But just as a general proposition, every dollar that the county will spend must be appropriated in this budget, approved by the state local finance officer.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring any additional dollars for expenditure later, whether it be 10 or 100, if it was unanticipated, then you have to amend your budget to spend it.
Right, but you can still accept it. You just can't spend it.
Correct. Correct.
So basically, if we want to allow the jail to spend any money on contracts from other counties, then we have to budget for it. However, if we don't want to allow them to spend that, then we don't have to budget for it. That's what it boils down to, I believe.
But if we do get a contract from another county, there will be increased expenses, I'm
Certainly.
sure, that go along with it.
So Joe, are you making a suggestion of a number, or?
I don't know, I'm just not sure, who knows what'll happen, but I'm afraid we might be limiting ourselves a little bit if we make it zero.
There's
But
not
I'm
any
not, I don't
yet.
want to count on it though.
Okay, Daniel, you've moved to amend, is that correct? The state prisoner amount of 1.4 million down to $1,068,347. Do you have anything to add to that amendment, or should I ask for a second?
Well, it's not going to balance just on that amendment, so we've got to get it to balance. And that's what I'm working on right now, because I had just took out that 300 and some thousand and decreased from the expenses. So I could make a follow-up to that amendment to make the item balance, but that's what I'm working on right now is trying to make it balance. So if we're going to cut $591,653 from the revenue, then we need to cut $591,653 from the expenses. And so that's where I'm trying to come up with cutting the expenses. The biggest portion that I see, and I listen to any suggestions, but the payroll right now in the proposed budget is $1,158,262. So if you decrease the total payroll down to 658,262, that's a portion of it. But then that'll also affect your FICA and retirement and decrease those amount, and we can potentially get budgeted that way. But I don't know if that's the pleasure of the court.
Well, okay. Assuming that you're not making a motion, I suppose we can still continue to discuss.
Can we agree on those numbers though, at this point?
I am somewhat in agreement with Joe that going all the way down to zero is somewhat restrictive. I would probably favor leaving that number at, at least $75,000 just in case.
How about 50?
Well, 50 is better than nothing.
Okay, I can go along with 50.
I like 50.
Let's go along with 50.
Okay.
So what
that down as a no.
what number of inmates are you reducing that from and to? How many other county inmates are you?
Well, it's just a guess. It's just
We don't know.
Yes. Yeah,
Well, I mean, if you're gonna have 50, does that represent, if you have 50,000, does that must represent a number of inmates?
Yeah,
I'd
that
have
would. You
I'd
just
have to
do
run
the
the
math
numbers.
on about $35 a day, and you can do that math, Greg. I'm sure you've got a calculator in front of you.
Yeah, I do, but I'm doing other math because I know that we pay food service at $3.71 per inmate. So you can reduce the food service by whatever that is.
Mhm.
The food cost actually goes up as inmates go down.
That's
Food service is a sliding scale. I have most of those numbers in front of me.
I didn't write that down, Judge, so I hope you did.
I wrote down most of them according to how low you go on the numbers.
Judge, I think not that we shouldn't make every effort to be as close as possible. But as a couple people have already said, including yourself, or intimated this, I mean, as unpredictable not only as the economy is, but the inmate situation, it's very likely we're going to have to amend this budget anyway. I hope it doesn't come to that, but there's either going to be tremendous swings in revenue or expenses or both within the next several months after we start the new fiscal year. So, not that we shouldn't analyze as closely as possible, but it's just going to be too hard to, you've got multiple revenue line items and we get into trying to project medical and food and hygiene kits and, you know, all these other, it's going to be virtually impossible to hit it on the nose.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we can't really, that's why I'm not necessarily, you know, when you start throwing in decimals and pennies on the end of it, I mean, you're really getting ambitious. So I think we should try to at least keep as close to round numbers as possible.
I agree, Judge.
Hold on here, I'm looking here.
To answer your question, Greg, I think it'd be about 3.5 county inmates a day. If you may want to check that.
Almost 4. I agree, Judge.
Yeah, close to 4.
Okay, Daniel, just working on what we've discussed so far. State prisoners down to 1,068,000. And if you want to go 347, I guess you can. Contracts from other counties down to 50,000.
Hold on, I've got a spreadsheet error here. Hold on. Okay, I've got it balanced this way, and this is the way I can do it. So taking the amending the contracts from other counties to 50,000, decreasing the state prisoners to 1,300,000 or $1,003,738.
Say that again, that's too fast.
Okay, 1,003,738.
Okay.
Okay, decreasing just those two to what the court said they want to do, that would be a decrease of $606,262.
606,262.
And then what that would end up doing is then you could just, and I know that there's several line items broken out here, but trying to divide them up over all this is that you could set the deputy, or you could just set jail employees at 750,000. And then your FICA then would be lowered to 48,000. And then your retirement would be lowered to, that can't be right. Hold on. What is the right retirement rate? 2106%?
I've got that in my email if you want me to look it up for you.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Hey, Dan,
Sir,
the state medical would have to decrease as well because that money comes from state inmates. It's all in the, it's, I know it's separated, but it's all the same thing technically.
okay, we'll see where we're at when we get the rate here on the retirement.
Y'all keep talking. It's going to take me a second here.
No problem.
So Daniel,
Sir,
the 750,000 you're talking about for quote unquote jail employees, are you talking about then we would not be breaking out these line items for deputies, matrons, commissary employees, corporal salaries, lieutenant salaries, sergeant FTO salaries, chief deputy salary? You know, we've got about half a dozen payroll related salaries.
Yeah, and I didn't know how to break them up, that 750 up among all those ones. So I was just trying to make it easy.
Well, we're gonna have to address it. I mean,
Yeah, but you see where I'm going with that is I was just gonna lump them into one line item and just call it jail employees.
that way you can figure out the FICA and the retirement.
They've always been one line item. Those are new this year.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't have a problem being separated. Detail's good, but they've never been that way.
I
Well,
think considering the changes that we've had to, I mean, just considering the 14 layoffs that we kind of walked into, it completely changes those line items, and it makes sense to recombine them at this point, I believe.
If they're down to 24 employees, or
24 full-time and 4 part-time is what they have at this moment.
I don't know why we wouldn't just consolidate them. I understand we've got to have the jailer salary separate, but I don't know why we've got all these others broken out.
I agree with you.
I can live with that. Did you get that retirement, Judge? I'm sorry.
I'm working on it. I think I might have it right here. Let's see.
2406.
2406 for non-hazardous, 3958 for hazardous. And you've already got the FICA number, right?
I was wrong on that. Hold on here. 2006, 206.
They're non-hazardous though at the jail.
What did you say? The medical, Magistrate Thompson?
I don't have that page up. I think it was 80,000. Is that right? On the revenue.
State medical?
Yeah, that goes down. If the $1.4 million goes down, that goes down.
If the number of state inmates goes down, the medical allotment goes down, is what he's saying, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you, Judge.
But there's no expense to it because now
The state medical is $1.91 a day per inmate. And then it's $29.43 a day for housing on top of that, which equates to the $31.34.
Well, here after I did the retirement, and there's going to be, I mean, it's hard to get it to a penny.
Not going to be perfect.
It's not going to be perfect, and we're going to have to evaluate it and everything. But changing those numbers, I've now got. Here's what I've got balanced. The revenue is what I originally had, and then deputies and matrons would go to 700,000, and we just call that jail employees 700,000, and then the FICA would go to 40. Let me make 48,000. Oh, I'm sorry. That ain't even gonna be right. We keep changing these numbers, it keeps throwing everything off. Sorry. Is there any line item that we can see instead of taking it from salaries, an additional $6,000? Magistrate Thompson, you got any suggestions?
I'm looking.
You talking about on appropriations, Daniel?
Appropriations, if we can find somewhere to take $6,000.
Well, you're gonna have to take more than that out of yeah, there's two that you're gonna have to take more than that out of. Medical and food.
Food service?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can drop if we drop food service to 254, that would bring us in balance, and that would put the salaries at 700,000.
Daniel, do you have a number of inmates in mind here? Because if you have a number of inmates in mind total, I can roughly calculate your food. And if you wanted to estimate that medical was going to run in a similar percentage basis, you could probably calculate it too. But I don't think you're taking food down enough from my chart I've got here.
I've got that scale in front of me also, Judge, now.
I mean, y'all help me out here. We're doing this on the fly.
All
here.
right, if it's 150 inmates, I've got 221,000. Is that what you've got, Travis?
What was the daily per diem, Travis? 31 what?
31.34, that includes.
34.
And yes, Judge, it's $1.33, 1.334 at 150 inmates. We got 151 in there as of the last condition report.
So that'd be
Yeah,
80,
so-
87 inmates. 87 inmates is what that number that we put in there calculates to.
Yes, and now they expect to lose some more, so.
It's 87 inmates and about 4 other county inmates probably. And we'll probably keep 4 other county inmates because we wind up getting inmates that are put in the detention center that are from Leslie County or somewhere we don't have a contract with that we wind up billing for. So,
And sometimes on a transient basis as well.
It
correct.
seems to be 4 or 5 that are not Bath County related.
That's correct. That is right. There are 4 or 5 that aren't Bath County or Scott County or any other county related that we typically see them from.
Daniel, can I give you some numbers that might help you?
What's that?
This would be based on 89 state inmates, which is what's in there right now. It'd be 62,047 on the medical.
Hold on here. Let me get down to that line item. So
Take your time.
on the medical services,
State medical.
you're talking about revenue.
That's receipts.
That's receipts, yeah.
Guys, if we keep going backwards here.
He's wanting to do the appropriations and then do the receipts, I believe.
Okay. My numbers are receipts. On the food on 160 inmates, it costs 227,000.
227,000.
Yeah, that's 160 inmates.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you on the inmates number.
160.
inmates. 160.
On the food. Food service, 226, correct?
227.
So how about I do this, and then you said on the,
If you need a spot for leeway, Daniel, medical services is probably the place to go.
state medical, how much do you think we can decrease state medical?
62,047.
047. Okay, so now we've got,
And I've got a housing number for you as well, which would be where the 1,000,004 was that you took down to 1,003,000 something.
is this on revenue?
Yeah.
Okay, what under housing fee?
No, it would be the state bed allotment. No, that's not right. I'm sorry. State prisoners.
State prisoners, we've got that at 1,003,738.
Based on 89 inmates, it'd be 956,035.
Why don't we just say $1 million even on state
Yeah, I like
prisoners?
round numbers.
Keep a
$1
little bit of wiggle room,
Anyway,
Okay,
Robert.
let's agree on the revenue, then we can work on the expenses, because every time I change this revenue, it changes the balancing of the expenses. So are we good on the state medical at, let's just say 63,000 even?
okay,
And then the state, the contracts in other counties, 50,000.
okay,
Yes.
Yeah,
State prisoners, 1 million.
Yes.
yeah,
okay.
And then, so that brings the total to $627,000. So expenses over revenue is, so we got to cut an additional 6,262. And Judge, you said we could cut that out of medical?
Mhm.
I think medical will be the best place to go.
Did you already change food to 227?
Yes, sir. I'll go through them here. I'm just trying to get it to balance.
This doesn't balance right at the end of the day, Daniel. We're having
It's going to be my fault, isn't it?
and we'll be having a special meeting on Saturday.
Hold on. Minus 6262. Gosh. I went the wrong way.
Did we change food service? Did we reduce that too? What was
Yes.
that number?
227.
227, okay. I forgot to write it down.
I've got these in there somewhere.
Okay. Here's what I've got on to make this balance. Is under deputies and matrons, all in one line item would be 706,262. Medical services would remain the same at 260. Even though we know we're going to be a little over on that one. Food service would be at 227. FICA would drop down to 54,000. And then retirement would drop to 206,000.
206?
206. Can you check, can somebody check my math on that? But I'm showing us balance with that. So that was basically decreasing the revenue by $627,000 and decreasing the expenses by $627,000.
So
Question,
your line
Daniel.
item for, I guess, deputies and matrons, is that including, who all does that include?
Yeah, what are you striking? What line items are you striking or eliminating?
Just lumping them just to jail employees. So we'd be eliminating commissary employees, which has always been there. State
Okay.
road deputies, it's always been there. Chief deputy, corporal salaries, lieutenant salaries, sergeant and FTO salaries, and administrative assistant. And just put it, and just make one line item say jail employees.
Unless I'm wrong, don't we have to set aside state road deputy and commissary employees as separate line items as well as the jailer?
Yes. They're reimbursed.
Those are pass-throughs, as we like to call them.
Okay, well then, out of that 706,000, deduct it out of that and put it in the commissary and put it in the state, however y'all want to do it.
Okay.
At 110 if you take what was in there.
Well, they had 26 that we could do. It was originally 26. Do you want to leave the 26 in state road?
Yeah, let's leave 26 and state road deputies.
One question, either Judge or Magistrate Thompson, maybe you can answer this. The state road deputies are not working right now, are they not? Because
That's correct.
they said there's a possibility that may end up being a 0. So we can kind of choose to make that 0, or we can go with 26. Those are the options as I see them.
Until they're allowed to allow traffic in and out of the jail, they will not be going out.
Set it at 0. Keep the line item, but set it at 0.
We can always transfer at a later time if
Yeah.
that program picks
That's
up.
correct.
Are y'all good with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Fine by me.
I am.
Now, what about the commissary? Do you want to put 85, 80? Do you just want to, the original was 85,700. Do you want to deduct 85,700 from that 706 and divide those up?
That's
Well,
okay.
that's a pass through also.
But that's coming from their comment. They're reimbursing us for those employees.
Now, if I'm correct, Daniel, right now they don't have that much in commissary employees currently on staff. They've cut that number with the most recent round of layoffs.
Their commissaries are down about 40%.
Put 50,000 in there.
So put 50,000.
Makes your math easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So that'd be.
I like it.
So that'd be what, 656,
Yes.
262?
Yeah.
Okay. Judge, when you're ready, I'll read through these so everybody understands and make sure everybody's agree with it.
Okay, well, I've got them both in front of me.
Okay, so we'll start with the revenue.
Mm-hmm.
State medical would be 63,000. Contracts from other counties would be 50,000. State prisoners would go to 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a cut of
627.
627,000. Does everybody agree with that number? Then on deputies and matrons, we just call that jail employees. And that would be 656,262. And then the commissary employees would go to 50,000. Food service would
State
go
road
to,
deputies are 0.
yes, state road deputies was 0. That's what they said, yeah. Food service would be 227,000. And then FICA would be 54,000. And retirement would 54. In retirement would be 206,000.
If you're gonna take state road deputy down to 0 in the appropriations, you need to do it in the receipts too.
As well as commissary.
Yeah. Those are just pass-throughs, you know, so they're neutral.
We'll just take those and zero them out and move that money back up to jail employees.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you'd have to do. But
Yeah.
also, would the health insurance go down too?
Yes.
It surely would, Joe, but it might be okay to leave just a little bit of sand, I guess you call it, in there. You hate to do that, but you know they're going to need some somewhere. So.
This puts us, what we just did, it puts us at about balanced budget. And I mean, we can sit here and tweak things, and every time we tweak something, it's going to turn around and change something else. So, So my question is, do we want to, we've decreased it by 627. And then, let's just review it each quarter and see how the revenue's coming in. And if we need to do an amendment, we need to do an amendment.
I don't disagree. I think it's a good job that we've done here working on this. And I do think it's something that we'll just have to keep an eye on and re-examine every quarter.
So my question, Daniel, is did you move the amount from commissary and state road deputies? Did you do anything with that, or are you suggesting we leave it the way it is on the receipts?
On the receipts, I just left it. I haven't done anything with the state road deputies as receipts.
Okay. And commissary as well, correct?
I didn't do anything with the commissary either.
Okay. Well, I mean, those two line items don't necessarily balance, but take that for what you will.
I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. I'll plug the numbers in.
Yeah, it's easy to balance them. Just when you deduct one, add it back to jail employees and make them balance. I mean, I think the judge could do that the judge and Shay could do that before it goes to TLG.
What do you want? So the commissary employees, what do we have commissary revenue at?
50,000.
So you would make that 50,000.
I'm looking for the revenue.
Oh,
Commissary employees, 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then the state road deputies?
0.
Where's that at? I'm looking.
That's right under the commissary.
So now we need to now with that revenue, we need to cut an additional 61,700.
Either cut 61 or add it into your jail employees line item, one or the other.
Well, it's got to be deducted. It can't be added. Well, what can we take down to medical to? That'll be part of it.
I think you could take the medical down to the same thing as the food service.
227.
Yep.
Magistrate Thompson, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm not real privy to the medical numbers. I don't think they're very predictable like everything else.
So now we need to cut an additional 28,700.
You could probably take that out of health insurance.
Sounds good to me. So how many full-time people do they have?
24 right now and 4 part-time.
24 full-time times 610 times 52. Wait. 24 times 610 times 12. That'd be 175. That actually, so we could drop that to 176. So 4,700, we could take that out of the
So you're saying you're 4,700 short, Daniel?
we got to deduct 4,700.
How about prisoner clothing?
I'd be careful with that one. They got to put some clothes on.
Yeah, but we're gonna have half as many prisoners though, don't we?
There's only
Yeah.
$1,000 in there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
What do y'all think about water and sewer since we're not going to be housing as many?
You can definitely decrease the water and sewer some. Probably even that amount, Daniel, I think can be fine.
yeah, I agree with Magistrate.
What's that amount? What's that amount, Greg?
You said 4,700. Oh, you're talking about water and sewer? 95,000 in the budget.
Minus 4,700. Is that what I said?
Yeah, it'd be 91.3
91.3.
or 93. I mean,
93.
yeah, 90,300.
That balance is okay.
Okay, the finance officer has told me that we've been working on a credit balance in regards to the jail on water and sewer. Apparently, probably had a leak or something they gave us credit on in the past, so that may not be the best place to take the money from.
Does she not think 4,700 will be okay? I'll take her
Yeah.
advice.
Do you know how much the monthly credit balance is roughly? Okay, she's gonna go see how much it is a month that we've been getting credited.
Well, I can tell you, Judge. In July of this year, we paid 9,100 for water and sewer, 76 in August, 69 in September, 87 in October, 87 in November, 9,000 in December, 10,000 in January, 8,400 February, 7,900 in March, 9,700 in April. I don't see any months that are vastly different than the others.
Yeah, I think what she's saying is they have prorated a credit onto our account.
Gotcha.
On a
So
monthly
we're
basis.
getting it reduced that much every, some amount every month.
And eventually that credit's gonna run out. How much?
Okay.
How much has it been though? We've only got $2 of credit left.
If we leave the 95,000, how about, can we look at medical services up there?
It's been a roughly $400 a month.
400?
Yeah. So it's been about the amount that we suggested taking out there.
Okay, so I need to go back to water and put it back at. Hold on.
I mean, really, I think if we decrease inmates that much, we're probably still okay. I'd say it'll drop more than 10%. That's $9,000. So
So you want to leave it at the 90,300?
I think that'll work unless somebody's got a big problem with it.
I don't. I was going to say electric may be another place where you could take some from if you needed to. We can always transfer later though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
90,300 is okay.
Okay, so do you want me to read through all the line items again, Judge?
Yes, please.
Okay, starting with the revenue. State medical, 63,000. Contracts from other counties, 50,000. State prisoners, 1 million. Commissary employees, 50,000. State road deputies, 0. So that brings the total revenue decrease by 688,700. So then we go to
Okay.
jail employees or deputies and matrons, 656,262. Commissary employees, 50,000. Medical services, 227,000.
Road deputy 0, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And chief deputy 0, corporal salary 0, lieutenant salary 0, sergeant FTO 0, administrative assistant 0. They're just all lumped into one.
Gotcha.
And then medical service is 227. Food service is 227. Jail water and sewer is 90,300. Technical grant, that stays the same. FICA, 54,000. And retirement, 206.
And health insurance?
176. Sorry, I didn't highlight that as a change, but it's there. 176. Can one of y'all magistrates just double check the FICA and the retirement on the total payroll? So the total payroll with the jailer's salary and everything would be 810,608.
What's the math on that again, Daniel?
The total amount of all salaries,
Oh, on the retirement.
24.06%.
Comes to 195,032.
I've got 206 in there, which that'll cover it.
Yeah.
And then health insurance, and then FICA.
What's the percent on that, Daniel?
0.0765 would be 62.
Yep, $62,011. That's fitting.
Well, now that with that FICA going up, we are going to have to take 8,100 from somewhere.
But here's the thing. I mean, you can tweak this and tweak it and go back and forth, but they may wind up laying off 10 more employees. They may wind up hiring 7 back. So,
just leave it at the 54 and then we can address it when we need to transfer.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just want it to balance. That's the only concern I have.
Right. Me too.
That's good.
I think
Just
I don't want to get too lost in the weeds.
Just to make everyone aware, the jailer just texted me and said the projected payroll for the current staff is $880,200.
And what was the number you had?
810,608. But again, you go back to, he may wind up laying off 2 more, or he may wind up hiring 5.
I think he's down to bare minimum.
He is Magistrate Thompson, but I mean, it may be that he winds up not even being able to keep any state inmates. So, I mean, it could be that we reduce that by 80, the population by 80. So I get it, but I think we're trying to drill down into it too much.
So Daniel, from your numbers, does it appear to balance?
Yes, I'm showing the total revenue with the transfer in as $2,219,124, and the expenses as $2,219,124. So I'm showing balance.
Correct.
124, 2219,124.
Okay. If that's what they're both adding up to, then they balance. Michelle, I'm sure this has been a workout for you. Daniel, are you going to make that as a
the new
motion?
figures.
Make that as a motion to amend?
Yep.
Yes, I'll make that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, now back to discussion of the budget in general.
Judge, I have a number of questions. I'll go whenever you're ready. If anybody else wants to go, feel free.
Go ahead, Travis. I don't think.
I'll try to be brief. You knocked out the jail fund, so I won't go there at all. On the general fund, the deputy county judge executive, there's an increase of $2,000 there. Is that a salary increase or?
That was basically based on the roughly ballpark 2-3% increase.
Okay. the finance officer, I know the former finance officer had 2 positions. It appears you're eliminating one of those. Am I correct?
That's correct. We're consolidating both of those into that position.
Which is why that one went up quite a bit.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
County attorney assistants has went up, it looks like 21,000.
I think that is accounting for their increase along with the county attorney investigator.
Increase in what?
The 2 to 3% increase.
So they're getting a raise?
Everybody under this budget, I believe, is getting a raise, but as Robert said, that's something we can address with the admin code and put the brakes to if we need to.
Okay, fair enough. I'd like to address the court as a whole on the sheriff's budget.
Yep.
I met with the sheriff and he has told me that he can't guarantee 24-hour patrol. I'm not going to support any budget that he can't do that. I think our constituents deserve it. I would like to think that every one of us on the court wants our constituents to have that. So I'll open that up for discussion, and I'd like for us to come together and find a way to make it to where he can do that. I have some ideas, but I want to take ideas from the rest of the court as well. But I would really like to see us address that issue tonight. I would like to see us to know that for the next 12 months, we're going to have a sheriff's deputy on the street 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So did the sheriff convey to you that he cannot provide 24-hour service under the current budget?
That is correct. And he's available if we want to talk to him.
Magistrate Thompson, just to talk a little bit about that, is that myself and the judge, after the December, we met in February, and then we met another time in March, and we're tracking the numbers as far as the revenue once we got the final financial sheets. And then actually, but right before, the day before our budget workshop, we met again. And when we met, he had questions and had some concerns of some things that he may have left out. And one of the concerns was paying out for retirement benefits on, banked up sick time and vacation time. And so that was one of his biggest concerns, which was made him think that he was going to need to cut lay off employees. When we met, we went over all those numbers, and we actually agreed to include that in there because we've got to make sure that the deputies are taken care of that have worked and make sure that they get all their salaries and stuff. So that's exactly what we did. And Magistrate Graham in the meeting had agreed or had mentioned, it'd be nice to be able to put everything in one line item. And I think Judge talked to DLG and got that worked out to where there's some things that are still being paid out of our fund, but it's going to be included into one line item. So they got quite a bit additional money than what was originally agreed to. And the sheriff and Charlene were both agreeable to us, and they felt very confident that they were going to not have to lay off anybody to be able to make those numbers work. So that was a meeting that we had. So, that's just kind of where I'm at.
The sheriff told me today that he might be able to squeeze through the end of the year without having to change the way the patrol is done in the county. And he's going to have to make some serious adjustments to even be able to do that. After the end of the year, he said he cannot guarantee 24-hour patrol. So come January 1st, we might be in a different boat. And I'm not okay with that. Our constituents are not okay with that. They expect help to come to them when they need it. And I expect them to get it. And I would like to just address that.
How much did the sheriff convey to you that he needed on top of what we already give him for him to provide that service?
He did not give me an amount, although I feel like if we gave him his detective back, I think that might be a compromise. He would be willing to give us his word that he could work with that. I think he's on the Zoom. If we wanted to pull him into the meeting and hear it out of his own mouth, I don't want to speak for him. That's not what I want to do. But I have had several conversations with him over the last couple of weeks since I first got the budget, and the most recent one being today about 4:00 this afternoon. And that was what he told me.
So we're already agreeing to give the sheriff $500,000. $500,000, and he needs an additional $50,000 on top of that to guarantee 24-hour service.
I think with the proposed budget, he's being cut 153,000 from his last one.
You can spin it any way you want to, or slice it any way you want to.
Well-
We're giving him 500,000, so he needs an additional 50,000 to guarantee 24-hour service.
I agree with you that the court is giving him 500,000, contributing that to him. I agree with you 100%, but it's 153,000 less than we contribute to the current budget.
But we're taking money from every department because you necessarily have to because of the economy the way it is. So we're giving him 500,000 out of the general fund, and he needs an additional 50,000.
I can only speak for myself. Public safety is of the utmost importance to me.
It is to me too, trust me.
Then I think we need to come together and figure out a way to get the sheriff to agree that he can handle it, and he is not at that point right now. And again, I'd encourage you to bring him into the meeting and let him talk.
Do we have any idea where you would want to take the $50,000 from?
Do I have an idea?
Yes.
I do. I would propose we take it from the road department.
From where?
Road department.
Where at?
How can you do that legally, Travis? That's my
Right,
question.
You can
State fund.
allocate from the state and local finance officer budget manual, policy manual. You can allocate a total of road fund dollars appropriated. It cannot exceed the budgeted truck license distribution receipts. So we can take up to 233,000 if we want. That's not what I'm saying, but that money is available to us.
So we don't want to blacktop roads.
We can use it in the general fund.
So we're not going to blacktop $50,000 worth of roads.
I don't know what that money's going. There's 320,000 in there for the purchase of new equipment. So if we're talking about suspending equipment sales, we can definitely pull 50,000 from that. And that wouldn't.
213,000.
What's that?
What was that amount you said that
How
we
much-
could take? The receipts from the license?
Yes, we can take up to 233,000.
233, okay. 233.
How many deputies does the sheriff have?
I can't answer that question, but again, if y'all bring him into the meeting, I'm sure he'll address it.
I don't have a problem with letting him in the meeting. I mean,
Or do I?
I don't want to speak for him. That's all I'm saying.
I had requested some information on his deputies back in December, and he refused to give it to me. So I don't know how many he has or what hours they work or anything else. I did request all that information in December and was told that.
Judge, I would imagine if you bring him in, he'll answer any questions that we have.
hey, Tab, do you know
Yes.
what email address he should be looking for, Travis?
I know the sheriff's email address. It's Clark County, Kentucky Sheriff, I think.
Do you see that on there, Tab?
I do not.
You got to give us the email address, Travis.
Hang on, I'll get it for you.
Is he in the attendees list? If he is, could he raise his hand?
And let's keep in mind, we've already cut the road budget 750,000. So you want to be careful about cutting that anymore.
Judge, can you see the attendees list on your Zoom?
Hold on a second.
I'm not seeing him in the attendees list.
I don't see him on there either.
He says he's in there. He just texted me and said, yes, let me get you an email.
Maybe he's on
Okay,
Facebook.
He says he's in the Zoom.
Under what name is he under on the attendees?
His name's Burl Purdue.
Somebody's raising their hand.
Okay, I see him.
There, I see him, BP.
Yep. He's there.
Yeah.
Think he's on mute though, Sheriff.
You need to unmute him.
Okay, I'm here.
Got you now, Sheriff.
Sheriff, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. I believe one of the magistrates was asking how many deputies do you have on staff right now?
13.
I have a question just in regards to something else we've all been discussing. As part of your budget for next year, do you have pay increases for the deputies?
Oh, we're working on the current budget, Judge. Next year, it's just going to depend how finances look, but it doesn't look like there will be.
Okay.
Because we work on the calendar years, not the fiscal year.
Yeah, I understand. You kind of have to do half a year at a
Right.
time.
But we think, Sheriff, well, I think I understood Magistrate Thompson to say you feel like you're okay for the current year. So we're looking at calendar year 2021 on your budget. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, kind of, Magistrate Elkins. I think we could squeeze by through December with what we have. But honestly, it's the way we've calculated it. It's like $188,000 that we'd never spend it for. We've cut overtime down to practically nothing. We're not buying cars. Not actually buying anything except what we need for the office itself, tax collection and things like that. There's been a tremendous amount of added expense on things that myself or any other sheriff has ever paid for before in Clark County. We're going to try to make it work, but I talked to my bookkeeper every day this week, and she even says she's not for sure we can make it through the end of the year without laying somebody or bodies off. We're going to do our best not to. But we're just not sure. And, there's a rumor going around the tax collections may be put off a month, November 1st, but I've been told by revenue that probably, and that's the word probably, will not happen. But if we're put off a month on collecting taxes, that's really going to be a big burden on us.
One thing that I would like to point out, just because nobody has said it yet, and these are rough numbers that I've just got on old paperwork, but when we voted on the sheriff's budget in December, the total cut was estimated to be about $232,441. This current budget, if you take into account the amount of excess fees that the sheriff had last year, which was roughly $22,000. If you take into account the line item of donated money, which is $10,000 of pass through, and we didn't get any donated money. So if you take that $32,000 along with the additional money in the budget, that $232 that was originally projected to be cut in December gets you to a number that's a little bit closer to 110, 115,000. So the amount that the sheriff's budget was potentially going to be cut has already been reduced through the conversations I've had with the sheriff as well as Magistrate Constantopoulos, almost in half. Can we all agree on that?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
So we're talking about whether or not we want to reduce it a little bit further. Now, I will say for my part, when we discussed with the sheriff, I said I was willing to go through the rest of this year, play it by ear, and if something happened, which let's face it, with COVID-19, something might happen that would throw off the projections so far as how much money he were to bring in, that I'd be willing to come back to the table. My mind has not changed on that. If the sheriff doesn't bring in as much money as he brought in the discussions we've had, I would be happy to look at making changes to the budget, so long as we've got money in our budget to do it with. That's the point. Whenever you're going to pay for something, you have to find a way to pay for it. I appreciate Travis's suggestion regarding the road department. Assuming that he's correct on that, I suppose that's somewhere we could look, but I think there's a decent chance that we're all committed to keeping the 24-hour patrol. I mean, I don't know that anybody's raising their hand saying, I don't want that. It's just a matter of whether you want to guarantee that money up front or whether you want to adjust it as we go. Unless, maybe that's speaking for me, maybe somebody else out there doesn't want 24-hour patrol.
Sheriff,
Judge, I was close to 150,000 than your number, but I wasn't looking at the donation and the excess. That may be making too much of an assumption. So I'm closer to 150,000 myself.
Yeah, you have to look at the donated money because that didn't come in. That's 10,000, and the excess fees is 22,000. And if you really want to get advanced to it, you can take 2% increase in property taxes, which is what the PVA is going to estimate, and say it'll probably be another 50,000. But I'm not trying to get that deep into the weeds.
Okay.
hey, Sheriff,
Yes.
do you think that, because we've already kind of mentioned in the in this budget process that we're going to kind of have to review this on a quarterly basis to see, where our receipts and everything are. I mean, can you go along with that and we review it and make sure that everything is as going as planned? We can review and see where your receipts are, and then we can address that as we move forward to see what the impact is actually going to be.
I wouldn't have a problem with that at all, Daniel. I just want to point out one thing, and it's numbers, but the fiscal court contribution is 440,000. And, now I'm going to be paying the retirement match, which is roughly 320. So that takes up, the vast majority of that contribution, at least 120 there. I'm also going to have to pay for workman's comp, which we hadn't paid before, was 35,000. FICA and Medicare match is about 83,000 roughly. And the health, dental, life insurance is 76,000 roughly. And then we had the reduced income of detective salary and postage, things like that. It's just a great amount of money there, much more than 440,000. I do appreciate the 60,000 you put in a different line item for retirement payouts for people that may retire. I know I'm going to have one for sure retire December 31st, maybe one more next July.
Hey, Sheriff?
Yes.
I want to make sure, because I think I heard you say something. We may not be on the same page. We still have your retirement as well as your FICA in our budget. That's not for you to pay. We're going to pay that.
My understanding was retirement was going to come to me now.
Yes, we have 120,000 in the budget for your retirement.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're carrying that.
right here.
60,000 or 80,000 for your FICA, 60,000 for your vacation and sick time, and then an additional 40,000 for just expenses.
Okay. That wasn't an understanding that I had from our last meeting. And it wasn't Charlene's either. We thought we were taking on the 319,000 for retirement for sure.
So then you feel better about providing 24-hour service, knowing that you're not having to cover retirement and FICA and.
Oh, yes. Yes, that'd make it much better.
Good.
Okay.
I think that was maybe a misunderstanding, and that's good.
And Judge, if I may, I know that this budget, it's very much a change, more for the sheriff than maybe anybody or the department head. But, as with what we just discussed a little while with the jail, and at the risk of sounding repetitive, I mean, that this is one of the many reasons why we have a budget amendment process. That's assuming that when the time comes, we have to do it, we do it correctly. And as to what Magistrate Constantopoulos said a moment ago, as we monitor this thing closely, and I think we should, just like with the jail situation, and in light of this COVID-19 And also in light of what kind of hit we take on property tax collections as well as the other taxes we collect, net profits, whatever payroll we collect and so forth, insurance premiums. It's going to take almost a top-down approach, making sure month to month and quarter to quarter we are where we have to be to pay bills and keep this budget balanced. And I would include, our responsibility with the sheriff's budget too. I mean, we all want to ensure 24-hour coverage, but as somebody pointed out a few minutes ago, we also want to ensure that we can keep resurfacing and repairing roads and keeping the snow cleared and keeping the fire department where it should be and the jail operating and all those obligations that we have. So, and I appreciate the position that sheriff's in and it sounds like he feels a little better knowing that we're covering the retirement and the FICA portion of that. So,
I will make one additional comment. To be quite frank with you, because we did have this discussion with the sheriff, myself, and Magistrate Constantopoulos over the past several months. And like I said, I did commit to continue looking at the budget. And if we have the money available, I feel fairly committed to 24-hour patrol. Now, granted, it's not the same line item suggestion that Magistrate Thompson made, but as I mentioned in our earlier hearing, LGEA, those funds, especially when held in reserve, are fairly flexible and I think potentially could be used to cure an issue in the future if we had one there. Also, just a feature of this budget in general that I know several of you have commented on already, I've left a tremendous amount of reserve money just in case any of our projections are too ambitious. We have roughly $1.5 million in different reserve amounts that will be available to us. So should our projections on income be off, we've kind of got some padding, in order to catch up. So I don't necessarily think we need to wring our hands and worry too much unless it's really, really bad, which it may be.
Judge, could I say something, please?
Sure.
Just to try to clarify things, when we had our last meeting, Charlene and I, our understanding was that the one line item, the 440,000, would have all expenses coming out of it, including retirement. I guess that maybe that was the miscommunication.
No, what happened, Sheriff, was our officer with the Department for Local Government, he said that we needed to keep those and we couldn't just make a lump sum to you on all those amounts. He said we needed to keep retirement, FICA. So the way that this budget is, I'll just tell you the line items you're probably concerned with. We've got FICA, we've got retirement, and then we've got a sheriff expense, which is for those various line items for things that you do to assist the fiscal court. And the sheriff expense line item is 40,000. And then we've got sheriff sick and vacation. That's what you and Daniel and I had discussed at length in regards to you're expecting to have some retirements occur and you need those funds available to pay for those retirements, which at the same time should bring down your payroll, which hopefully would bring down FICA, health insurance, and the whole group of payroll related expenses. So we've got 60,000 in that for you as well. But
Yeah.
The total amount's $500,000.
Yeah, we're working stringently on reducing the payout from that 60,000 line item. We're having the deputies, and they're in agreement to do it, to basically they're taking time off between now and their retirement dates, so that much money would not be expended.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you feel better now, Sheriff?
Yes, with us not paying the retirement and the FICA, I feel a whole lot better.
Well, I'll say this, Sheriff, I can certainly see where if you thought you were gonna have to carry those expenses, that I would have been panicked as well.
Yeah,
That makes perfect sense to me. And as soon as I heard that, the bell rang in my head that, yeah, now I see why you were panicked and understand it very much.
yes,
And I'd like to say too, kind of on the back of what the judge said, there are a lot of services that we provide, and I think Magistrate Davis hit on it as well. Fire, we help the sheriff. We get the snow off the roads, or we don't, the road department does, and fiscal court oversees some of those funds as well. And there are a lot of places that we can cut in this budget before we would allow us not to have 24-hour service from the sheriff's department, before we would not get the snow off the roads, before we would not have a fire truck show up to your house if your house is on fire. There's a lot of places we can go in this budget yet, so it's not a reason to panic. We're going to, at least I am committed, and I'm sure the rest of this court is as well, to making sure that those services are continued to be provided as we go forward. So, has to get a lot worse than it does now, or it is now, before we can't get that done.
well, and I appreciate the predicament you are in, because in the words of somebody you hear every day, we're all in this together. But yeah, it makes a lot more sense, and it's a lot better for us not having to pay the retirement match and the FICA and Medicare match.
Yeah, I think even Sheriff, I think the fiscal court has mandated that we have to pay those expenses. I don't think we can pass those back to you.
We could, but they would have to have a separate billing set up, and it would be a lot more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about the confusion on that, Sheriff.
Well, that's fine. Like I said, I can understand it being me. Charlene, she much more, she's a lot smarter than me, and that's why she is the best bookkeeper in the state. But yeah, that was her understanding too, that all this was coming out of that one line item of 440,000.
Gotcha.
But you understand now it's 500,000, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
we
500 total.
Yeah,
500
500.
Okay.
I feel much better with this now.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sheriff.
Sheriff.
You're welcome.
Any,
Thank you all for entertaining that. Thank you, Judge, for letting him come on and do that.
no problem at all.
I feel better about it now as well. Just technicality on the sheriff's part there, the insurance proceeds, is that not a pass-through account?
It is a pass-through. My thought was to leave the line item there as 0 on the receipt side and to not have it on the expenditure side. And if we have it to carry over, he can have it the next year.
So it's not a problem if it comes in, we still can use it.
Correct.
Has a place to put it.
Good. On the sheriff's expense account with the 40,000, I'm all for that. But it's a technicality in the budget manual, 599 account can't go over $1,000.
Okay. I'll tell you the truth on that one. I sent it to our local rep, and he said that he scanned at it. He didn't see anything that jumped out at him. Now, maybe that's something with a more intense review that will jump out. So if that's something you all want to try to address right now, we can.
I think in regards to the 1,000, it's really not an expense like an expense account, kind of like what we do, Magistrate Thompson. You know, usually what he does is on certain bills, he'll send us an invoice over for that bill, and then we'll
I
write him a check
understand it.
for
I'm
that
just worried
invoice.
about it getting kicked back because it can't go over 1,000.
Yeah, what's been indicated to me from the DLG is when they do their more intense look through the budget, if there's something they need to change, they'll make that suggestion and send it to us with the second reading.
You're comfortable with that? I'm comfortable with that. So I have not talked to them about it.
Okay.
On the corner, are we funding the extra deputy through December? The 6 months is up that we just did.
Yeah, that's permanently funded in that line item.
Just until the 6 months is up, not the entire fiscal year.
That's for the whole fiscal year.
That's for the whole. We are funding that for the whole fiscal year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. On the magistrate expense, I don't know what the pleasure of the court is. I brought this up last year and it was not the pleasure of the court, but I will say up front that we are laying employees off and we are potentially talking about hiring freezes and pay increase freezes and all that. I would be willing to reduce the magistrate expense account and take some out of our pocket as well. If you're gonna leave it, the math doesn't add up at 300 a month for 6 of us. It comes to 21,600. It's been reduced to 20,000. So I just wanted to point that out. If the pleasure of the court's to make a change there, I would be all for it. I don't know how the rest of you feel. On the training incentive, I'd be willing to give up my portion of the training incentive for this fiscal year. Don't know how much that would be, but if that can be figured and you can make a change there, I'd be willing to give that up. On the county treasurer salary, I assume you're getting rid of the other position that the former treasurer held, what was it?
That's
Director?
being incorporated in just like with the finance officer.
That answers my question there. The payroll contract went up 3,000. I was curious why there might be such an increase there.
That was an estimate in regards to the time clock issue.
So because of the time clock is going to cost
Right.
us $3,000. Okay. All right. Court facilities maintenance was decreased significantly. Is that going to be an issue? Or are we not using it? I'm just curious the thought process there.
Are you talking about the amount that we're going to be spending or receiving?
Talking about what we're going to be spending. It was 60,000.
Yeah, almost every line item that I decreased was based on looking at 3/4 of the year and what was spent, and how far below 75% it was. So that would correspond with the amount we spent this year so far.
Okay. On the codification account, is that done? Are we done paying for that, or there's only $1,000 for this year?
My thought on that was, it's a legal issue. Potentially they may need to do some corrections, kind of like a change order. So I left a little money in there just in case.
Okay. So we've already paid for that to be done. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've paid everything we were supposed to pay, but if there's a change order or something along those lines, I want to be able to address it.
Just want to make sure we weren't giving up on it.
No, oh no.
Good deal. On the time clocks, have we not already purchased those?
We have the time clocks. We don't have them installed.
So that money's to install them?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if there may be additional fees in regards to operating with the time clocks. I'm not 100% sure what that might be, but that's why it's in there just in case.
Just a note, when I talked to the Chief Barnes on the fire department, he was concerned about his uniforms. He felt like he wasn't going to be able to provide adequate uniforms to the firefighters. I'm not privy to that, but that was just a concern that he expressed to me. On the budget as a whole, the health insurance did not go up, but I think we had a significant increase. So I was curious, are we funding that adequately, or?
From what I can tell, the health insurance has been pre-adjusted.
Okay.
So it should already be in there. The health insurance, if you look at the line items on several of our line items versus last year's budget, they've already been adjusted up. So
Okay.
I think that should be covered. And I'll tell you this, I sure hope we find a way to save more money when we do health insurance this year.
I couldn't agree with you more. I just wanted to make sure we had it adequately funded because I knew it was a significant increase.
Yeah.
On Gary Epperson on the EMA, CSEP, and all that stuff, I noticed some pretty significant cuts there. Is that not all pass-through money that we need to make sure is available to him if he gets what he's thinking he's going to get?
All those except for the move from 500,000 down to 400,000
Yes.
were basically made upon Gary's recommendation.
Okay. And the 500 to 400 is what I talked to him about today. And he said that was going to severely limit his ability to provide some federal money to the community and different entities. So,
Well, I told him, basically, I've discussed this with some other county judges, and a lot of other counties, what they do is they get the money up front so that the county doesn't actually ever pay for it and go through the reimbursement process. I'm a little nervous about getting reimbursed for all that money. So really, I'm just trying to slow it down. If he gets 400,000 and he needs 200,000 more, I think it would be reasonable to amend the budget if it's reimbursed at that point.
fair enough. Good answer. That's all I had, Judge.
Okay. Anybody else?
So we have a motion, Judge, on the floor for the first reading.
Yeah, there was a motion and a second a long time ago. Ask Michelle who it was.
I think it was Greg and myself, wasn't it?
It was Masters Elkins and Masters Constantopoulos.
You're correct.
You all froze up for a second.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Now I'm going to find my agenda in all this paperwork. Please bear with me. Okay. Item number 7, magistrate comments. I guess we'll start with the first one on my screen is Magistrate Davis.
Thank you, Judge. Judge, I hate to take up any more of the court's time, but I know we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year, and I understand that the bids were open this morning in your office for the Boonesboro Bridge project. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Road Supervisor Curtis sent out an email shortly after that to the road committee members, and which Magistrate Graham's on that, so he's probably seen this by now as well. But I understand that there were 3 bids for option A, which is the steel deck bridge option. The low bid there was Triple C Contracting, which is $87,587. The Plan B, Package B, which is the aluminum culvert, the low bid was from the Allen Company for $62,745. I think in his message to the road committee, Allen, took the position that the steel deck bridge would, in all likelihood, last somewhat longer. It's a little more expensive. It lasts somewhat longer, in all likelihood, than the aluminum version, aluminum culvert option. And of course, with the fiscal year 2020 80/20 bridge fund, that would cover 80% or $80,000, whichever is lower. So when you incorporate the $9,600 that we got as a settlement from Kentucky Farm Bureau from the accident, it looks like on the Plan A version steel deck bridge, we'd be out somewhere between $7,800 and $8,000 out of pocket. The road department would be, and on the aluminum culvert, we'd be out just under $3,000. That's an approximate number. We've got, according to Mr. Curtis, we've got, I think, $80,000 left in this line item that would be available to us. So there should be more than enough to cover what would end up being our portion of it. So in the interest of expediency, I thought I might bring it up now and make a motion, Judge, if it's appropriate time to do so, to accept the Triple C Contracting bid, which was for a total of $87,587, and that's for the steel deck bridge option. But again, ideally, we'd have it on an agenda, but we're trying to get this thing in before, hopefully before the end of the month, or at least before the end of the fiscal year. So
I would second that, Judge.
Okay, there's been a motion made and a second regarding the steel bridge contract with Triple C for Old Boonesboro Road. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Judge, thank you for letting us discuss and vote on that tonight. I know the road supervisor appreciates it as well, I'm sure. We'll get moving on that. And the only other thing I want to bring up, Judge, is I have started looking at our fairly dated stormwater, storm sewer drainage ordinance, which is from back in the mid-90s, 96, I believe. You and I have discussed it, Judge. I know you're aware of the issue at Verna Hills. We've got a significant storm sewer that's ruptured, although it's well outside of road right of way. So it's not something that I think the road department could address, although Alan has looked at it and he's discussed it with the property owner as well. So in the weeks, Judge, and months to come, although I know finances are going to be an issue, I would like to start getting back on track with storm sewer issues, Judge. My thought at this point is I'd like to address storm sewers that may be related to or tied to county roads or streets. If it's a storm sewer problem that's related to a state road, a state highway, a rural secondary road, and KDOT system, I think that's not necessarily something that ought to be maybe as high on our priority list. And I know virtually all the magistrates on this court have multiple stormwater issues in their district. So I don't want to just single out Verna Hills, although that's the one that's gotten the most attention recently because how drastic the problem is on this particular property owner's property. But I'd like to look at that. There is a provision in that ordinance for cost sharing with the property owner on private property. And I want to get with you, Judge, some more in depth on that, and also the county attorney in the weeks to come, and maybe start coming up with a solution, and maybe we can also look at some federal and state grants, some infrastructure grants for that. But I know we've put stormwater to some degree on the back burner, and there's always something that's pressing. And I think that's going to be one of those things that we need to really start coming up with a formula or a protocol for dealing with. And but I'll discuss Verna Hills with you more, Judge, in the days to come. So thank you.
Okay.
And thank you, Judge. I just want to add thank you for putting this budget together. I think overall you did a great job, and you provided for a lot of contingency funds, which I think is a smart, prudent move given this pandemic and the blow that is being felt by city and county governments. So I just want to add that. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. You may want to speak with Magistrate Constantopoulos or Magistrate Elkins. I believe they were on the Stormwater Committee at some point in time.
That's right.
Okay. Magistrate Blanton?
Just a couple things, Judge, and I'll be real brief. A couple meetings ago, I had asked to get a report on our complaint on Cook Avenue. I have yet to get that. If you could follow up on that for me. And along those lines, I had an individual from the 2 Mile Road area complain to me about that burnout trailer that sits right down the road at Cole Road. Want to know if we could do anything about that. So if you could kind of look into that for me. We haven't talked about 4th of July. I don't know if there's any plans to try to do anything at all or not, but we certainly need to make a decision on that, maybe with the city and the Parks Department. I don't know what we can do in social distancing, but we at least need to try to address that. And finally, in the terms of revenue, we still have those tax credits from the bell tower. If we could try to get those things sold, that would generate us probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000 or $80,000 to have to spend, preferably on the courthouse repair. But that would kind of be a pass. That would be my hopes anyway, to get that repair done and hopefully use those, sell those tax credits for that. So those are my couple of items, and don't need a quick response tonight, but if you'll keep those on our front burner so we could follow up on those things, I'd appreciate it.
The mayor and I did speak briefly, I guess you could say, about how we need to talk about the 4th of July. So I think that's on both of our agendas to talk about. My knee-jerk reaction is, let's find some way to get something done on it. I don't want to cancel the 4th of July.
That's all I've got.
Okay. Let me see who I have next here. Magistrate Elkins?
I have a few things, Judge. And I have a couple of people who have contacted me that want me to almost do a public comment for them because they can't do public comments. So if no one has an issue with that, I'll start there, if that's okay.
Okay. For the record, we did include public comment as part of our hearing with LGA and CRA tonight.
Correct.
They
But
just had
not
to
on
submit
the-
them to the court.
Yeah. So the first one comes from Kevin Wilson, who says, please ask for an update from the Stormwater Committee at tonight's fiscal court meeting. And I would say this, we were given 3 magistrates. I think Magistrate Graham, Magistrate Constantopoulos, and myself were on the Stormwater Committee. Were appointed to that committee a couple of years ago. We were given, seems like 38 residents or 38 locations that had stormwater issues, and told at the time that there's no money set aside to make these repairs. But we had talked about doing some sort of sharing. I think I heard you mention this evening where the homeowner may provide some of the materials and some county department, like the road department, may provide some of the labor. I don't even know if we can do that with some of the issues we've come up with road department being state funded. But that's one of the things we looked at. It's probably something that we do need to look at. I know springtime's here, and we're starting to see, as Magistrate Davis said, other ruptured stormwater issues. I've got a couple. Westchester, I have 2 that are pretty serious issues. I think they're going to have to be dealt with at some point very soon as well. I'm sure there are others that I forgot about, but there's a couple in Wayland Heights, as a matter of fact. So I guess that is the comment from Kevin Wilson, and I guess to give his address, because you're supposed to for public comment, it's 6535 Muddy Creek Road. And then I have another one from Teresa Bridges, who wants the court to address the governor violating our 899 Clintonville Road. And she wanted to ask the question: if the fiscal court realizes that our civil rights are being violated, and if we do realize that, what are we going to do about it? So I'm asking that question on her behalf.
Do you know what civil rights it's in reference to, Greg?
I've got a feeling she's talking about keeping our businesses closed, trampling on our rights. I don't really. That's a question that she asked, but I assume that's what she's talking about.
Right.
The continued keeping our business closed or reduced capacity, I guess. So.
Well, I would answer that in this way, just in case there's anybody out there who isn't aware. Any restriction on business is coming from the state and from the governor on down. I don't believe that the mayor has, and I know I haven't passed any restriction or made any order restricting business, church, any of the things that, are in controversy. But unfortunately, in the grand scheme of pecking order of government, the governor outranks me. So, when he makes an order, we kind of have to obey it under the law.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Judge. The other thing I have, I'll make it quick. It's the last thing I want to say, but it still seems that there are a lot of questions out there about how the court handles the reporting of its finances. So I'd like to say this, and I grew up learning that if you do something wrong often enough, eventually that wrong begins to feel right. So keep that in mind as I say this. This treasurer, by instruction of the county attorney and KRS, will not change, modify, or conjure a report to reflect perfection. She is presenting to the court and the public and the auditors a report that reflects the finances that they are at the time of closing. Previously, those reports would have been changed, modified, or conjured behind closed doors or in the dark, if you will. So the public, the court, nor the auditors would see the true report. We would only see a version of the treasurer's report that reflected exactly what the previous administration wanted us to see. One thing that was done in the past in order to hide these issues was the illegal retro transfer. So let me explain what a retro transfer is. It's a conjured term for a conjured activity. It's where funds are shifted behind closed doors, and then maybe they were brought to the light for the court to vote on, or maybe they weren't. We don't know. Sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. So a retro transfer is a conjured term for a conjured activity and is contradictory to Kentucky statute. There's a reason that KRS forbids our government from doing work in the dark. Your government should always work in the light of day. It should always present reports that can be scrutinized by this court. And I know that Magistrate Thompson has had questions in the past, as have others, as he scrutinizes those reports. We should never conjure reports so that they won't be scrutinized. I too scrutinize the reports, as do the other magistrates. So can any member of the public, because these reports are public record. They're for the public to see. And if Magistrate Thompson had been a magistrate under the previous administration, he would have never had those questions because he would have never seen the reports. The only reports he would have seen were the altered reports that were done behind closed doors. So it's good that Magistrate Thompson sees these mistakes. I see them too. You can as well, because they are public record and they're no longer hidden from the public. They're out for everybody to see. So I'll finish with this. Is it easy? Is it easy to present an imperfect report? No, it's not. That's like saying you made a mistake. But we should never present a report that's been conjured, even if it is imperfect. That's how we should present it. So, you know, I know that people go on Facebook and they want to say that this court is maybe, at least they want to project us as being unscrupulous or, you know, doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And that's just not the case at all. What we're doing is we're presenting reports to the public that everybody can see, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I, for one, appreciate the transparency, Judge, that you and the treasurer are showing and demonstrating. And I hope we never go back to doing the government's work behind closed doors like we have surely done in the past. And I'll end with that. Thank you.
Okay. What do I have here? Magistrate Thompson.
Few things, Judge. I had the Stormwater Committee on my comments, and I think the other magistrates have covered that, so I'd just like to reiterate it. What's the plan for the June meetings? Can you fill us in on that?
Currently, we know that we can do Zoom. We don't think we can do the technical college. We're going to see if we can get something at the extension, but it'll either be Zoom or the extension most likely.
For what it's worth, I'd love to see us back in person if at all possible. Just gonna put my 2 cents in there. Last but not least, what's the status of opening up the bank accounts for the separate funds?
I can tell you I signed the paperwork on that. That's probably a better question for the treasurer so far as where the process is on it. Treasurer Champ, are you on here still?
You're on mute.
They are opened. We're just waiting for the checks to come in and also for your all's orders to transfer any money into those on July 1.
My concern continues to be that the jail fund's in the negative. I assume we haven't opened a bank account for that.
That's not actual cash.
The accounts, they don't have any money in them currently yet until you all tell me to put money into them.
Okay. So are we as a court not going to correct the negative balance on the jail fund? I mean, what's the plan there? It continues to bother me personally.
Travis, the plan specifically, as far as I'm concerned, I can't speak for the whole court. I just want the jailer to present a line item, appropriations and receipts for the rest of the fiscal year, something that we can have on paper and say, this is what we're going to spend in each of these departments. and this is how much we need in order to operate, then we can present a transfer that would perhaps cure at least some of the issues that you've raised. Now, there may very well be some line items. Yeah, I don't know. We can present a report and see how the court votes on it. I'm not going to get into the business of speaking for the whole court, though.
It would seem to me that we've got to correct that fund regardless of what the jailer may or may not provide. And, I can't answer those questions for you, and I hope that he will.
That's probably, so far as whether or not we're required to correct all those balances, is I get the hunch that's a legal question. If County Attorney Elkins wants to answer that, or if we want to face it at a later date.
Well, I think it needed to be addressed in some fashion, before it occurred. But the problem is that we've endured a practice of negative spending, catching up later with transfers after the fact. That practice has to be discontinued. And so, how could the court decide what must be done when it has no way to understand what the jailer's expenses may be from here forward, or what the potential revenue may be? And I'm aware that those requests were made in writing some time ago, and he simply hasn't answered. So I don't think he can. I don't think he can expect the court to guess, what needs to be done. Surely soon, and hopefully soon. And I think that's the way to put it. Hopefully soon, the court will be informed of exactly what the financial circumstances are expected to be, so that you can help him. I think that's the issue. You just need to know where to go, and he has to tell you how to get there. So,
Judge, can you extend an invitation to him to be at our next meeting so we can work through this?
Oh, I'm glad to invite the jailer to the meeting. Yes, sir. Definitely.
Let's do that, because I'd like to see us work through this and get that right side up. Only other thing I'd like to say is thank you for going through the budget like you did tonight. Thank you for allowing us the time to go through it in detail. Appreciate it very much.
I'd like to thank anyone who hung on for the full almost 3 hours. Magistrate Constantopoulos.
Yeah, Judge, I just want to commend you on the budget that you put together, and I really want to commend this court. Given the circumstances that we've encountered, we had to make a lot of hard decisions, and I think we all worked very well to make the changes that we needed to make, and hopefully the revenue is not going to be as bad as what we predicted, but we can continue to monitor that going forward as we go into the new fiscal year. So, but I just thought the fiscal court and the whole did an excellent job tonight working together to put together a good solid budget. So I just want to commend the court on that. And then also in regards to, I know we've had a lot of changes in the finance department. I just want to personally thank, Shay and Cheryl for their hard work. Anytime that I've needed something, I send them an email. They're very quick to get that information back. So I really appreciate their hard work. And Deputy Townsend, I know she filled in before you'd replaced a finance officer and did payroll. She did an excellent job getting all that done. So I just want to thank all of them for their hard work during the transition with the COVID and everything on top of that. So other than that, that's all I've got to say, Judge. Oh, one last thing in regards to the storm committee. That storm committee, when Judge, when you took office, I don't think that committee was ever reappointed. It kind of fell off. I know we had all three met multiple times, went to several sites and reviewed it. And it's really hard for it to be a committee decision, because it's going to be a lot of money. And the other fact is that we've got to figure out, if we're going to take that on, is how do we select which projects need to be done. I can provide the court with a list of all the stormwater issues that have been reported back from 2008 that have been sitting there not been addressed. So
several $1 million, isn't it, Daniel?
Some of those projects were going to be upwards. I think one, correct me if I'm wrong, Magistrate Elkins or Magistrate Graham, that I think one of those projects had actually had engineering done and so forth on it. It was going to be just $500,000 for that one project, was it not?
Project, correct.
That one single project. And like Magistrate Davis said earlier, the total list is probably, I don't know, 45 some properties, and a lot of these are on private property. So, you know, it's going to take a lot of time to, if we can do something, or if we do address those, of having to get easements and those types of things, and depending on whether there's going to be engineering to be involved in that type of thing. So I hope that gives a little bit more information to Magistrate Thompson and in regards to that. But Judge, I can give you that information and then kind of see how you want to proceed from there and go from there. So, but thank you all.
Okay. In regards to the Stormwater Committee, you know, we do benefit in some ways looking at our budget for this year, and that we are going to be able to allocate those funds in reserve in case we need them. Now, had there not been a COVID-19, and, you know, we're lucky because we've been, for a year and a half, we've been extremely conservative. So, you know, we have money for just in case what happens, sorts of things. And then, you know, COVID-19 happened, and hopefully we're going to be able to deal with it. I will say I'm a little reluctant to start dedicating millions more dollars to additional projects, simply because I don't know if we're going to have it. But we'll see. And, you know, however the court wants to go, that's how we'll go. Anything else, Daniel? Okay. Magistrate Graham?
Yes, I'd like to thank you for the work you've done on the budget and for everyone's participation tonight. And thank Magistrate Thompson for bringing up the sheriffs. And that is a concern many of my constituents have had. They've always done a very good job out here in the county, and we just don't want to see that change. And also, I was wondering if you considered using Gary Epperson's building for a meeting, the emergency center.
You know, at one point in time over the past month and a half, we did consider it, but I don't think we've checked back. And that may not be a bad idea. Granted, most of his rooms are kind of filled up with chairs and wouldn't meet the social distancing requirement, but we can probably move stuff out of the way. So that's something I'll look at. That's a good idea, Joe.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few notes. First of all, in regards to the US 60 engineering project, they have suggested that we need to make a recommendation. We received several different, I guess you'd say, applications, although they really came in the form of binders with lots of information in them. Myself and Magistrates Davis and Constantopoulos reviewed them. I feel confident in saying we want to recommend Palmer Engineering. So if the court will take that as a motion, can I have a second? Unmute yourself there.
Sorry about that. I'll second it.
Okay. Magistrate Davis. Any discussion?
Judge, just, and I do have a pretty good memory of it, but just to make sure, you're talking about the US 60 corridor infrastructure engineering work. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, for the sewer project, to be in conjunction with our potential grant application.
Correct. Okay.
Obviously, we're not committing money to actually pay for the sewer. We're trying to get a grant for it at this point in time.
Understand. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. A lot of you are muted. If you want to unmute yourself or raise your hand, I'd appreciate it. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. All right, moving on from that, more notes that I had. Some of this we already covered, but I was just going to mention we may want to consider addressing raises in the administrative code as a way to save money. Also, in regards to health insurance, I know Magistrate Constantopoulos has been looking into some more creative ways to save money on health insurance. That's one of those expenses that we've passed on to most of the other constitutional officers, including now the sheriff. I think we need to, really be aggressive in trying to find a way to save money on health insurance, because that's going to help all of our departments. I think we do need to take the budget that we've had a first reading on, and perhaps we'll pass in a few weeks, and reassess it from time to time. I know the city is planning on reassessing theirs in 6 months. I believe Magistrate Davis say maybe every quarter we should reassess, but it's just simply unknown how the economic conditions are going to affect us right now. So I agree with that notion. Last, some of y'all may or may not be aware, the Pioneer Festival this year is not going to be held. That's, in my opinion, that's a sad thing, but it is a tremendously difficult time. And, group events are going to be difficult. So, that's bad news. That wasn't the county's decision. It wasn't the city's decision, but it's there anyway. So won't have that to look forward to this year, but hopefully we will next year. See if I may have one more note. Oh yes, one more note. Good news. County Judge Executive's office is open to the public. Gary Epperson got our thermometers in, so now we can scan everybody in the office. I don't think we're going to be scanning visitors though, so you don't have to worry about that. Just please don't come in coughing and hacking. And with that being said, that's all I have. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion made.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Robert. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Judge.
See you, Judge.